So Meryam, how's the move going?
I'm still surrounded by boxes. This is just an illusion, guys.
Yeah, that's what Meryam did to relax after the campaign. She moved.
Apparently your watermelon is in a carton somewhere, Meryam, because we can't see
Yeah, yeah. Usually it's floating right here.
Yeah.
I decided to go for this painting.
Lovely painting.
It was, and I decided to wear a shirt that is very colorful, so that replaced the watermelon. I kind of realized that the graphic done for this event, it's the watermelon colors, right? Or is it me?
No, that's watermelon colors, green and red. All right, so I'm happy to get going. So hello and welcome everyone. I would like to thank you all for coming tonight. Je vous remercie d'être venu aujourd'hui. Thank you for joining us at Courage for this discussion with Meryam Haddad and Dimitri Lascaris, two eco-socialists who ran in the Green Party's recent leadership race. We would like to begin by acknowledging that I, your host, am doing this work for Courage on the unceded and unsurrendered territories of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. We ground the work that we do at Courage in anti-capitalist and anti-colonial politics, which means that every action we take, including webinars like this one, must center the goal of dismantling capitalist and colonial structures. This perspective is especially important as we face the reality of climate change. Climate change is not just perpetuated by colonialist and capitalist systems, its most life-threatening effects are acutely felt by peoples most oppressed by colonialism and capitalism. We acknowledge that making the choice to reform colonialist structures like our political system from within is not without its incredibly valid and valuable criticisms. We also believe that engaging with electoral politics and reforming institutions from within can be useful tools in the fight for a just and equitable society. Putting in place truly progressive policies that stop the violent oppression of Black, Indigenous peoples and people of color is an especially urgent task. It is from this perspective that we look to the structures and tools available to us within the Canadian electoral system. We don't believe the fight is over when we elect a progressive candidate or see more anti-colonialist policies adopted, because our goal is not to reduce oppression, our goal is to eliminate oppression. Electoral politics is not our end goal, but it can be a useful tool in our fight against colonialism and capitalism. How we might use this tool of electoral politics and how we understand the limits of its use are key themes of this evening's discussion. Tonight, we will discuss Meryam Haddad's and Dimitri Lascaris' recent runs for the leadership of the National Green Party. As eco-socialists running for a party that has been critiqued as Tories with Teslas, we hope that this discussion can spark a critical examination of the ways that socialists enter and engage with political parties, as well as generate important debates about other transformational strategies, both within and without the party system. My name is Emily Quaile, and I'm a member of Courage Ottawa. It's a local chapter of the national organization. A member-based organization, Courage is a coalition of the independent left that attempts to bridge the divide between movement and electoral politics. Our members have deep ties to activist-led movements across Canada, and as a relatively new entity, we have the benefit of being able to build our local chapters with the democratic, feminist, and eco-socialist values we hold dear. We are always looking to welcome new members to help build our capacity to push socialist political policies at all levels of government, to assist workers unionize their workplaces, and to support existing socialist movements in our communities. For more information about Courage, our ongoing initiatives, our basis of unity, and to become a member, please visit couragecoalition.ca. When Meryam Haddad and Dimitri Lascaris announced their candidacy for the Green leadership, we at Courage had a very lively debate about how to engage with the Green Party in these leadership campaigns. We were absolutely thrilled to see eco-socialism on a national stage, but the contentious aspects of our debate came down to questions of a potential allegiance to the NDP as socialists, if there indeed is any such loyalty, and questions of our collective ability to transform the Green Party into an eco-socialist political party. You know, usually this NDP versus the Green Party narrative is put to us by the media. And in the past, it has been given both parties a greener and more left-wing framing than perhaps was deserved. This narrative took on a different tone this year, though, with these two eco-socialists in the Green leadership race, while the NDP remains steadfast in a Blairite direction. We also got the sense that many young socialists were galvanized by one or both of these campaigns, putting some fear in outgoing leader Elizabeth May. She tweeted that she was worried about a party takeover. With Dimitri Lascaris finishing in second place, only some 2,000 votes behind Annamie Paul, we see that a bold eco-socialist platform is viable not only to voters willing to enter the Green Party as new members, but to parts of the pre-existing Green Party base. And here at Courage, we've been working to develop initiatives that engage with electoral politics directly and indirectly. We are hosting this webinar because we believe that sharing our experiences is not only an important educational tool, but it's something that can help us delineate a strategy for future campaigns and movements. Tonight, we'll obviously have a tight focus on the Green Party of Canada, but we believe that the lessons learned can be applied to the NDP as well. Both parties continue to prove to us that they are comfortable being painted with a more left-wing brush, but when it comes time to challenge capitalism as the root cause of climate change, both parties are far too quick to shy away from the bold political stances and policies we so desperately need. We see both parties ignore their socialist membership to different extents, and for those few socialist NDP MPs and MPPs we see in the legislature, they face censorship and isolation from the leadership. And this is the crux of the issue that we would like to tackle this evening. How can we get socialist politicians into those positions of power when it seems that both the NDP and the Green Party actively stand in our way? How do we as socialists enter these political parties as the activist members we want to be? And is this strategy of entryism a useful one? So the goal for our discussion tonight is twofold. The first is to obviously hear from Meryam and Dimitri about the specific lessons they learned, about the Green Party's structure, the challenges they faced, and particular strategies that worked or didn't work during their campaigns. And the second goal is to generate a broader discussion about some of the larger issues that we on the left face when we engage with the political party system. What we can do to build supports for future socialist campaigns, and what the future of eco-socialist politics and activism might look like. After one question that I will pose to both of you, we will move on to a discussion-based format for the rest of our evening. I've divided our time into 3 topics, giving us about 15 minutes to discuss each one. Following our discussion, we will turn to a question and answer period. As we go, I encourage all who are watching to type in the chat, whether you are Zoom or on Facebook, with questions from Meryam or Dimitri or both. James and I will do our best to keep track of these as we go. Where possible, I will integrate your questions into our discussion, as I have already done with many of the pre-submitted questions. And I will ask for your collective forgiveness for not calling you each out by name for the questions I've already integrated, as you submitted so many great questions through our Instagram and email, many of which echo similar issues and concerns. Well, I do not think I need to spend any time at all introducing our 2 guests tonight, so I propose we get right into it. The first question I will pose to both of you is an attempt to strike a positive note before we get into these challenges and critiques. As those of us on the left know all too well, it is really easy to get caught up in the pessimism that comes with understanding and challenging a hegemonic capitalist system. I think, and I believe, that highlighting these smaller victories can help give us the stamina we need to hold on to the urgency of our demands without feeling too defeated. I will turn to Meryam first and ask you to share some of the successful aspects and moments from your campaign that give you hope and determination.
I feel like at the beginning of the leadership race, we felt like there was lots of pessimism within socialists that we would talk to. Even organizers of grassroots movements didn't want to implicate themselves in politics. But throughout the race, I think we were able to convince them that it's something possible to achieve. I think this pessimism is something that we can actually battle and successfully win against it. It's super important for our movement to stay optimistic of that we could actually accomplish great things in the future. I think the thing that I'm the most proud of is the group of volunteers, what we were able to actually build. I'm just super proud of, with all the adversity that we had to go through, we were still able to get to the finish line in one piece, and still ready to be a militant and activist in the future. You know, it's not going to stop there. If there's something that I learned during this leadership race, is like you should never give up. the fire is still in the belly, and we're going to keep on going.
Great. Dimitri, the same question for you. Can you share some of the successful aspects from your campaign that give you hope and determination?
Happy to do that. Let me just start by acknowledging I'm coming from the unceded territory, the Ganyangahaga people here in Old Montreal, who are the true custodians of this land on which I'm privileged to live and work today. I think it's fair to say that when Meryam and I entered the race, people in the political establishment in this country would never have thought that we would have achieved these results and garnered the level of attention that eco-socialism as a movement managed to achieve. And there was a constant, refrain from the very beginning of the campaign that we don't want to use the word eco-socialism because that's toxic, that's going to scare away voters. We don't like labels. And I just want to comment on that particular argument because I have a real bee in my bonnet about it. You know, the Green Party is a label. When you call yourself green, it's a label, and it's a label that comes with advantages and disadvantages. On the one hand, it conveys to people that you are singularly focused on the environment. On the other hand, it makes it easy for you to be characterized as being a one-issue party, which many in our country believe, rightly or wrongly, the Green Party to be. So we already have a label. And, these people who say, we don't like the centrists who said throughout from the very beginning, we're not ideologues. We don't want to ascribe to an ideology. They are ideologues. They're every bit as ideological as anybody. Centrism is an ideology. What is an ideology at the end of the day? An ideology is a collection of ideas according to which we think we should organize our society and economy. And centrists are no less wedded to a certain collection of ideas according to which they think we should organize our society and economy than leftists or people on the right. So this was a complete smokescreen. And it really detracted from the core issues. People want to know where you stand politically. They want to know what your orientation is. They want to know what your values are. And eco-socialism communicates that. It's no less legitimate a political term or label than any other political term or label, including green, centrist, whatsoever. And so this was the constant struggle that we had to confront from the very beginning of the debate within this party. And what I found through the course of the campaign, as Meryam and I persistently defended eco-socialism in the face of these, what I regard frankly as spurious arguments, is that a lot of people at the beginning in the Green Party who were skeptical about eco-socialism, who didn't know what to make about it, who were curious but wary, ended up coming over to our campaigns and supporting the eco-socialist label. And I've seen this through the avalanche of emails that I've received since the results were published and the winner was announced on Saturday night. So many people, I've gone through hundreds and hundreds, I have many more messages to go through, have communicated to our campaign that initially they didn't know what to make of eco-socialism. But when they began to understand what our fundamental philosophical orientation is and what our vision of a just and sustainable and democratic society is, they persuaded to support eco-socialist candidates. And so I'm really heartened by that. I think, I don't feel more, I've never felt more positive about the prospects of a socialist movement in Canada or more broadly in the world today than I feel now. Because despite all of the subterfuge, despite all of the spurious arguments, despite all of the scaremongering, the fear-mongering about socialism, we came within a hair's breadth of winning. And to me, that's a profound statement on the viability of socialism as a movement in this country. And the last thing I want to say is, and I must have mentioned this survey 500 times in the course of this 7-month campaign. There was a survey done by Forum Research last year during the federal election, which nobody wants to talk about, which asked Canadians about their attitude towards socialism. And 58% of respondents said they have a positive attitude towards socialism. And if you were to exclude, supporters of the Conservative Party, which is more or less going off the deep end of the right of the political spectrum, the percentage of Canadians who have a positive view of socialism is sky high. And this is despite the constant vilification of socialism in the corporate media. One can only imagine how much sympathy there would be for socialism if it was getting a fair shake from the corporate media. So even in the face of the vilification of socialists, we see that in our own country, polling evidence demonstrates that a significant majority of Canadians have a positive view of socialism. And from that perspective, the result in this campaign is not at all surprising. It's perfectly consistent with what polling shows about Canadian attitudes towards socialism. So it's time for us to fearlessly defend the cause of socialism. This is a movement whose time has come. There never was a moment in the history of humanity when socialism was more needed than it is today. And I personally and all the people on my campaign team feel more energized than we ever have. We don't feel disappointed at all by the outcome in this race.
Good. I'm so glad to hear everything you just said. And I think that I will echo what a lot of other people are feeling too, is that I don't think that there's a whole lot of disappointment right now. I think there's a lot of invigoration. There's a lot of, pleasure at seeing the confidence that you have in saying the word socialism on a national stage and seeing that starting to be accepted. This is a great segue. So thank you, Dimitri, for making my segue for me. Our first topic of discussion is how to enter a party to transform it. So what I'll do is I'll pose just a couple of opening questions to both of you and open it up for you to discuss. So what I would love to know is, when you began your campaigns, did you feel like an outsider to the party base? Did you feel like the party establishment or executive was accepting of your socialist political ideas? And what do you think has changed in the Green Party or perhaps in Canadian politics as a result of your campaign? So
Meryam, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I could start. Well, at the beginning of the campaign, I was, let's just say I was friends with the establishment because I had people on my team that were very close from the establishment. It's when I started asking questions about the way the campaign was going and that they left the team. And I started, the campaign went rogue and we started saying that we're openly eco-socialists. We were saying that we're socialists at the beginning. We started talking about a free youth membership. We started talking about things that were important to us, about inspiring people that are young and being true to ourselves. That I started having, I started feeling like an outsider to the establishment. I don't feel like an outsider from the membership. I think the membership of the Green Party of Canada, a lot of them identified initially as socialists and eco-socialists. A lot of people learned, you mentioned, Dimitri, that there's a lot of people that are sending emails. People learned throughout the race that they are actually, in fact, eco-socialists. They just didn't know about it.
Right. Exactly.
So that's what I could say about at the beginning and how I felt about how welcome I was, or if I was able to reach everybody inside the party. I think it's something that developed with time, but I'm super proud with what we've accomplished. And the second question was about the results. What was it exactly? Can you repeat the question, if you don't mind, Emily?
Oh yeah, what do you think about your campaign has changed in the Green Party or within Canadian politics as a broader idea?
Well, the huge amount of members that joined. I mean, there's a huge amount of people that voted for us, Dimitri. And we were placed very high on their ballots. I just think that we completely transformed the party. I think there's a lot of people, there's a lot of young people that joined also. It's something that we should be very proud of. A lot of people, old people that were never involved in politics also joined the party and started being curious about Canadian politics, and that it's actually something possible to achieve change within parties. It gave a lot of hope to a lot of people, and I think it gave a lot of hope within the party also.
So I always like to emphasize that no political party is monolithic, and the Green Party never has been. And it's also true of the establishment with any party. The establishment, what we call the establishment, is not monolithic. I think it's fair to say that the Green Party, and probably every party in this country, the leadership governs to the right of the base. And we can get into a long and interesting discussion about why that's the case. And that's true of the Green Party, just as it is of the NDP and the Liberals and even the Conservatives. They govern to the right of the base. But even within the establishment, there is ideological diversity. So I know for a fact that there are people within what we would call the establishment of the Green Party. So for example, federal council, the staff of the Green Party, the shadow cabinet, who are actually quite sympathetic to the views that we, Meryam and I, and a couple of other left-leaning candidates advanced within the leadership contest. But ultimately, it is the persons who incline towards the right of the political spectrum who ultimately get, I don't know how they do it, but they tend to have a disproportionate say in the direction of the party. And that's true of our party as it is in any other party. I think it's very easy to paint the Green Party as being conservatives on bikes. And there's certainly some people within the party who could be fairly described in that way. There are a disproportionate number of them within the leadership of the party, the establishment of the party. But there has always been a very strong eco-socialist element within the Green Party of Canada, just as there is, I'm sure, within the NDP. And I think there even are eco-socialists within the Liberal Party.
Yes.
We've seen that in this race. There are people who came over to the Green Party from the Liberals to support eco-socialist candidates. So let's be careful about sort of painting all of the parties with a broad brush and understand that there is within the center and center-left parties a strong eco-socialist element, and there always has been. What we've managed to do within this campaign, I think, is demonstrate that you can speak the language of eco-socialism fearlessly and still be a viable candidate. That's what needed to be shown, and that has been demonstrated. And now the sky is the limit. We've broken through a barrier. And the thing that I'm most excited about is how many times I've seen the word eco-socialism mentioned in the corporate press. It was almost completely absent from the mainstream media dialogue, and now it's all over the place. I've seen it in the National Post, even Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, CTV, Global News. And the mere fact that it's being talked about is a breakthrough that we should all celebrate. It's opened up a conversation that we weren't able to have before, even though there are eco-socialists in all of these parties and always have been.
Do you think, I really like how, first of all, what you said about that, because it really does break down that idea that socialists have any allegiance to any one party or the other. And I think that there's room, and there always has been room in both parties for a socialist movement. And as long as both these two parties continue to govern to the right of their base, as you said, we're going to be in kind of a bit of a tighter situation. Do you think, that said, do you think that electoralism is the right path for socialists to take, or should we be more focused on movement building? I know Courage tries to do both and engage with political parties to try to push them left and reach out to movements, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I think Courage has it exactly right. I think that, you have to use every available tool, every tool in the toolbox in order to achieve an eco-socialist outcome. If we don't get political power, it's going to be very hard at the end of the day for us to change the direction of our country. We have to get political power. But if we rely strictly on the electoral system to get that power, it's going to be extremely difficult to achieve it at the end of the day. So I think these two options are not mutually exclusive. We have to nourish movements. We can be at the same time a professional political party and a group of passionate, committed activists acting collectively for the greater good. We are in a situation today where it is absolutely essential that we access every single sector of our society that is sympathetic towards an eco-socialist cause. And whether that means align ourselves with Black Lives Matter, with the Wet'suwet'en solidarity activists, with the Idle No More movement, with Occupy Wall Street, which is where I really cut my chops and sort of learned, what the importance of activism and the effectiveness of it. And at the same time, pursuing seats in Parliament, a seat at the table of political power. That's exactly what we should do. So I commend Courage for not viewing this as mutually exclusive options, but seeing that this is something that we have to do in tandem.
I agree with Dimitri, and it's very important also to see trans-partisan organizations where there is not really a one political affiliation. I think it's possible to work all together to advance socialism in Canadian politics. And definitely, so yes, it can come from the base, the grassroots, but it can also, we need to be in parliament to make some change. So it's very, very important to participate in electoral politics too.
During your campaigns, did you find that there was a good deal of support from external organizations in the socialist movement, or do you think that having a stronger extra political socialist movement would have done more to support you in your campaigns?
I feel like if some socialist movements weren't that reticent at the beginning or so pessimistic about what kind of outcome we would accomplish, I think we could have won this, Dimitri. I really believe so. Like, I think if we had like maybe one more month, I think anything could have happened, or maybe a few more weeks. I think we lacked a bit of time. And yes, but there was a lot of support. Socialist organizations and well, there's always within grassroots movements and organizations people that believe in eco-socialism and are eco-socialists. So
yeah, so there was tremendous support, I felt, from a broad range of progressive organizations. They didn't necessarily identify as eco-socialists, but they were strongly progressive in their orientation. So Courage, even though Courage didn't ultimately issue a formal endorsement, nonetheless, Courage was supportive in its own way within the constraints of its constitution of an eco-socialist orientation within the Green Party. There was an organization that was developed, I think, during the campaign called the Justice Greens, and I know that a couple of their members, if not more, are on this call. And let me just say to those who claimed otherwise, I did not create the Justice Greens. I have no control over the Justice Greens. The first time I ever heard of the Justice Greens was when they sent me and the other candidates a questionnaire, which I was happy to fill out because I'm a grassroots type of guy. So I responded to their questions. And in addition, there were organizations like Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East and Independent Jewish Voices Canada, who graded the candidates based on their responses to various human rights oriented questions that they put to all the candidates. The Democratic Socialists of Canada chimed in at some point, and I'm sure I'm missing other organizations. So there was a lot of support from independent, non-aligned, but progressive organizations for eco-socialist orientation within this race. But I must say that it would have helped if the left was united. There's a tremendous splintering on the left. And if we can learn anything from the success of the right in this country, it is that the unification of the Reform Party and the Progressive Conservative Party took them to a disproportionate level of influence in Canadian politics because they managed to unify. At least they had the good sense to do that. We on the left have not had the good sense to unify. And unification can take a number of forms. It doesn't necessarily mean that we form one party, but we should work in tandem together. And that brings me to the question of an organization that Meryam and I were talking to last night. We talked to them at various points during the campaign, the One Time Alliance for Democratic Reform. They have been advocating for cooperation between the NDP and the Greens to maximize their collective presence in Parliament. I think that this is an idea whose time has come. We're making it too easy for the right to exercise disproportionate influence in the politics of our country by not being sufficiently unified and cooperative on the left.
And we're encouraging people also to vote for the Liberals instead of voting for us by not collaborating. In a first past the post electoral system, we don't have any other choice but to collaborate at least that one time to accomplish electoral reform. There's many things that must be done in Parliament, and we need the kind of leverage right away. We have 5 to 7 years to act on climate change. Time is running out. And it's my generation, the next ones that will be living this. Like, honestly, time is running out. And it's possible to win many, many more seats I think the analysis of the One Time Alliance said that we would double our seats, our winnable ridings in Parliament. Imagine we could probably even win more than that, because you would see a lot of people that voted for the Liberals ending up voting for this One Time Alliance candidate, right? Mm-hmm. So it's something I really believe in, and it's something that I really wanted to advocate for. From the moment I learned about this alliance, I started advocating for it during the leadership contest. It takes political courage, you know. I know there's a lot of people that are against it or see the NDP or the Greens as two parties that there's too much animosity. There's a bad past. But we're not there, you know. Young people do not care. They don't have this affiliation to one specific political party. I think some do. I don't want to generalize either, but I know that for young people, what's important is to see us unify, to create some change in Parliament.
Yeah, we're definitely going to come back to that generational aspect. I think that's a huge, you know, important piece to this puzzle of how do we unite the left and how do we gain more power and how do we leverage the energy that we've created. I'd like to go to our second topic though, which is about socialist policies within a centrist party. So I know that we are amongst comrades tonight, so I can say with confidence that we all know that we must abolish capitalism because it's exploitative and it's unjust. But this is still a very scary sentence for so many people, despite polls reflecting widespread approval of socialist reforms, like the one that Dimitri mentioned, like wealth taxes and socialist values, like even just approval of socialism as a concept. A few questions have come in surrounding the efficacy of tagging ourselves as socialist when perhaps we can just, you know, ditch the socialist policy without saying as much. And Dimitri, you talked about this in your introduction, is how I think we do need to be a lot more bolder about saying that we are unabashedly socialist and remove a lot of that stigma. But how do we overcome this generational aspect to it? Because we see that Canadians are pretty divided when it comes to age on the socialist question. And how do we overcome partisan issues when we're looking at trying to lift the focus of socialism in this country? I was wondering how, what your thoughts are on how to continue pushing a socialist message, a positive one, out to the public and have it be well received.
May I go for it, Dimitri? Yeah. So I think it's about the messaging. It's about having a populist messaging, and we need to speak in ways that people understand, not to be too technical on how to explain what eco-socialism is. Explain to people that it's about rethinking our economy, for it to care for the people and for the planet, to have an economy of care and repair. These are words that people, especially like coming out of this pandemic, I think people will be more alert and more welcoming with us bringing up something about rethinking our economy, right? And yes, like by talking about simple ways like a jobs guarantee, what it is pretty much is when the private sector is incapable of creating jobs for people, well, the government needs to take over. So if we have in our messaging jobs for everybody, we will make sure that nobody's left behind. These are things that people relate to, and will not be scared of our messaging.
So I would say, similar to something that Meryam has said, I think we have to lead with policy, not with concepts. So I tended overwhelmingly to emphasize the platform, an incredible platform that our platform committee put together through the course of the 7 months of the campaign. And when you explain to people what you mean by eco-socialism in terms of policies that will have an impact on their lives, I think that this becomes a much easier discussion to have. So, for example, there is rightly within this country a tremendous frustration with concentration of wealth in the hands of so few people. There was a study that came out a couple of months ago, I think it was the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, which found that during the confinement, the 20 richest Canadians saw their collective net worth increase by $37 billion. This pandemic has precipitated an economic crisis unlike any we have seen in the post-World War II period in the Western world, and they are making out like bandits. You don't have to be a socialist to find that to be outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
So just talk about the fact that there is an extreme concentration of wealth, that the economy is rigged so that no matter what the underlying health of it may be, the wealthy are going to get richer. This is something that appeals to a great many people. They're fundamentally, in their heart of hearts, most human beings understand that this is wrong, and they want it to be dressed in an assertive manner. And so we came up with the idea of a wealth cap. Let's say we're not going to allow people to accumulate wealth above a certain maximum, which under our platform is actually quite high. It's $500 million. Arguably, it should be much lower. And people, when they think about that, sort of in a common sense perspective, just looking at it from the perspective of fundamental human decency, that appeals to them. They think, why would anybody complain about having to limit themselves to $500 million of wealth? How greedy must you be to consider that to be an inadequate amount of wealth? So when you talk about policy and policies that sort of appeal to our fundamental sense of fairness and human decency, it is very easy to have a discussion about socialism. But if you come at people with dogma, and with high-level concepts and complex philosophical arguments, you're much less likely to succeed in helping people to feel comfortable with the whole concept of a socialist society.
Miriam, do you want to jump in?
I agree with Dimitri. So, yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with him. It's about the messaging, and we need to speak to people in a very clear manner. I think we went a bit more technical, at least for Dimitri during this leadership contest, because there's so many political nerds that jumped into the leadership contest also. So it was important to be a bit technical, which is not really my strength. But my strength is to talk in a populist kind of way and in a messaging that is clearer or more understandable. And I think it's very, very important to talk to people and make them understand that we're not here to just like destroy their quality of life. You know what I mean? Like, people have this concept of, okay, well, if you want to dismantle capitalism, well, you're gonna make us go back into caves, or there's this misconception that people have. But look at CERB as a policy. You know what I mean? Did it kill anyone? I think it helped a lot of people to have $2,000 a month, and something that was done by our governments to save our economy, right? It's something that could be that can keep on going with time. And I know that we're going to be talking about other policies like a UBI a bit later on, but that being said.
And I would add, it's very important to invert this the language of extremism. I remember at the very beginning of the leadership race, we had a debate which was hosted by Steve Paikin of TVO. And one of the leadership candidates who leans to the right of the political spectrum accused the eco-socialists of being extremists. And it didn't take a lot to dismantle the argument. All that I had to say was that if you're defending a suicidal status quo, which the centrists are, then you are the extremist. And the moderates in the room are those who are advocating for the abandonment of a system that is leading us down the path of extinction. And will ultimately preserve the health of our planet and our democracy. We are the true moderates, the socialists. The hardliners, the extremists, the fringe political actors are those who are ideologically wedded to the status quo. And we cannot say that enough. It must be said over and over again. People understand that message, and it resonated.
How do we overcome the phrases and policies that still are so triggering for people on the center or right, or people that just aren't that informed about it? Like Palestinian rights comes to top of mind about this. The second you mention that, all of a sudden there's a slew of accusations of anti-Semitism. Or when you talk about having solidarity with Antifa, you're accused of being, a violent rioter. Or when you talk about land back, people get really afraid that you're coming to steal their personal, plates and possessions. I wonder how we overcome that. Meryam?
Well, we're standing with the marginalized. This is how I would present it. So we're standing up, and we're allies to the people that need to be supported in this country and everywhere in the world, basically. So so I, like, by saying that I am Antifa, and it brings a lot of attention, like, from social media, right? So this is something that it's important to provoke in a certain way. It's important to bring in this discussion, because there is an ongoing xenophobia and racism that is brought up by the far right, and we need something to battle it on the other. Let's just say, I don't want to say extreme, because Dimitri was saying, like, we're not extremists, but we're not there. But it's important to battle in the same kind of manner too, like, I am somebody that is at the intersection of many equity-seeking groups, and for people like me to see the rise of fascism and far-right policies and just, like, far-right people and organizations, it's something extremely scary. So we need to be together to fight that too. This is how I see it.
I've found that when you're standing for a marginalized people for whom the establishment, the political establishment, has no sympathy, and in whose suffering the political establishment is complicit, it's very important to rely in making your argument on mainstream sources of information. And I think that the case of Palestinian rights is an excellent example of this. So when I talk about Palestinian rights, and I was asked over and over again, there's a candidate in this race who claimed to have been asked repeatedly about Palestinian rights to an unfair degree. I got asked about Palestinian rights all the time, just constantly. And I, from a long experience in advocating for the Palestinian people, I've learned that you can delegitimize the language of vilification and marginalization that's directed at those of us who defend Palestinian rights by relying upon mainstream sources of information. So I would point out that the Canadian government, even under Stephen Harper, has recognized for decades that the settlements are a violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. So I don't have to go rely upon some Palestinian human rights organization to make that case. It's our own government that's been saying it for decades. Amnesty International has recognized this is a mainstream human rights organization broadly respected within Canada. It has documented for years that the Israeli military and police are torturing Palestinian children. Torturing children. This is coming from Amnesty International. An Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem, has documented the torture of Palestinian children by the Israeli police. So if you rely upon mainstream sources of information to make your case about the need to defend and stand up for marginalized people, it's very easy to counter the vilification that we will typically have to confront from those who want to maintain the status quo. And I think that's something, it's a lesson that you can translate to a whole bunch of other contexts. Don't rely upon marginal source, what the mainstream regards as marginal sources of information. To the extent you can, rely on mainstream sources of information to make your case, and it will make it very, very difficult for people to claim you to be an extremist or out of touch with the political reality of the world.
I was wondering if you can speak a little bit about specifically making party policy in the Green Party of Canada. I know that a lot of people have asked me this question through email in advance of this, that how does that policy get shaped? And now that we've got, at least 10,000 or so eco-socialists in the Green Party, what can we do to reform the party from within? How viable is it to transform some of the existing more centrist policies of the Green Party and drag them to the left?
I just want to correct one thing you said, Emily,
Sure.
respectfully. I don't think that we can say, at the end of the day, we got over 10,000 votes. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that every single person who voted for me or Meryam at the end was necessarily an eco-socialist. A lot of them are, but a lot of them were just receptive to the whole notion of eco-socialism and not necessarily committed fully to an eco-socialist program, but they got to a level of comfort where they felt that they could support an eco-socialist candidate. So I think it's important to bear that in mind. And I have no problem with that. Like, you know, people, left-leaning voters who might not necessarily agree with everything that I advocated for as an eco-socialist supporting me, I got no problem with that. You know, and ultimately we can have a conversation in terms of policy about what everybody is comfortable with. The main thing that we accomplished in this campaign was getting nearly half the party members sufficiently comfortable with the concept of eco-socialism, they would vote for an eco-socialist candidate. Okay, and so in terms of the policy process, and this is going to be the next great battle, and the Green Party has just launched, you know, its biannual policy process. And for those of you who are on the call, and most of the people I understand from the numbers you gave at the beginning, Emily, are Green Party members, let's be aware of the challenges we now confront. When we brought forward in 2016 a BDS resolution within the Green Party of Canada, you were able as a member to dictate very specific concrete policies and put them to the membership for approval. Afterwards, and I think this was largely due to the establishment's, the right-leaning members, you know, horror at the idea that the Green Party membership actually adopted by a significant margin a pro-BDS policy, they gutted to some degree the ability of members to dictate specific policies. So now what they have a new policy process in place, and you can go to the Green Party website and get a real good feel for how difficult it is to pass that kind of a policy by looking at the drafting rules for policy. You basically have to confine yourself to 150 words, and you can only advance a general principle. You cannot dictate a specific policy. And the example they give, which I find quite troublesome, they give a good example of a policy. And the example that they give is the Green Party will advocate for a transition to a renewable energy economy. That's a well-drafted policy according to their new rules. A badly drafted policy is the Green Party will advocate for a net zero emission economy by 2030. So that's a quote unquote badly drafted policy. What is going on here? What is going on is that the establishment freaked out because of the BDS resolution primarily and decided we are going to transfer power from the members to the leader. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to confine the members to articulating very broad, vague general principles within which the leader has tremendous, vast discretion to decide what policies the party will ultimately advocate for. So I think that, you know, the Greens who are on this call, you should be very troubled by this. We are a party that champions participatory democracy. And our number one priority in this policy process is to get rid of the new rules. We need to restore grassroots democracy to our party. That is an undemocratic power grab by the leadership. And I cannot state strongly enough how much I oppose that. And I said this before when I was running to be the leader. This is not new. I've been saying it consistently. There is no justification for depriving the members of the ability to dictate concrete, specific policies to the leadership. The leader is ultimately a spokesperson for the members. And that should be that way in any participatory democracy party.
It's super important for a party like the Green Party of Canada, who keep on saying that we're grassroots. It's a grassroots party. The members dictate the policies. We cannot talk about new policy. The leader cannot bring new policies by him or herself. That's something that is advocated. We talk about green values all the time. We cannot just keep on going like this. And what goes on behind closed doors is something unbearable and undemocratic and hideous. This is how I see it. So it's something that we absolutely need to change, and it's one of the biggest battles that we should champion for this biannual policy process.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really happy that you touched on that. A couple of people have asked me specifically to discuss that policy shaping aspect of the Green Party, and I think that's crucial. That you can that at least there's a specific policy you can point to, because I know for the NDP, it is less of a specific sort of policy and moment that it happened and more of a gradual, quiet, and obvious shift that dragged political power away from EDAs and members towards the central planning. So it's unfortunate that it's happening in the Green Party as well, but it is somewhat hopeful to hear you have something of a direct line of action towards taking that back.
I can't stress this enough. One thing I want to say, to people who are upset about the outcome, and a lot of the people who supported me and Meryam are unhappy. And I've been spending a lot of time on the phone and by responding, via email to people to urge them to stay engaged, don't give up. I think it's extremely important that in the policy process that has now been launched, that all of the people who supported eco-socialist candidates remain engaged, particularly for the purpose of putting forward boldly progressive eco-socialist policies, participatory democracy policies. We need your help now. Do not give up. We've started a movement and we are winning. We will win if we stay together and we stay united. Too many people have said to me, I'm so upset about the outcome, I'm leaving the Green Party. That is not the answer. We made huge progress and we can continue, but we have to stay in the game.
Yeah. I'm happy you brought that up, because I've received so many questions like that from audience members as well about what about a new party and kind of what next. And that's actually our third. Oh yeah, sorry, Meryam, you want to jump in?
Something, and it's something that is something that was brought up a lot by people that reached out. I was furious with the outcome, and I think Dimitri is super optimistic. I feel super optimistic at the moment, but after the outcome, like I needed like 2 good days to just like wake up from being so negative about the outcome of this leadership race, okay? And look at everything that we were able to accomplish. So yes, it's just the beginning. This is how I see it now. And yeah, people don't give up. We still have lots of work to do, and it's something possible to accomplish.
Yeah, thank you. First, I'm just going to do a little plug for our Facebook Live. We're also streaming this on Facebook Live. So if there are people that didn't register, you can head over to Facebook and like and share us. As for the third topic, this is all about the future of eco-socialist politics. So yeah, as you said, lots of people are asking about that new party and where do we go from here? A lot of people have expressed that frustration in both the NDP for a long time and now recently for the Green Party. So some people have asked a lot about, is it time to form an independent eco-socialist party and challenge the NDP and the Green Party to, shape up or ship out? Or do we start focusing our energies on organizations like Courage, where we try to focus our energies on movements to help pull these political parties into the left arena that we want to see them? So where do you think we should go from here?
Meryam, would you like to go?
You can go if you want to, okay. But I can if you want to. It's up to you.
Well, I'll begin. We saw this debate unfold after Bernie lost the 2016 presidential nomination in the Democratic Party. And there was a movement that formed to enlist Bernie to lead a third party. And I think Bernie made the right decision. Bernie decided that that was the least, or certainly not the most effective way in which he could build upon the movement that he led. And what came out of it? What came out of it is that we got some incredible people in the United States Congress, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and many others are now coming through. Bernie realized that the institutional obstacles to a new party are immense. Of course, he's in the United States, we're in Canada, but the same is true here. It's extraordinarily difficult the Green Party took 27 years to get a seat in Parliament. And then at the other end of the political spectrum, there's Maxime Bernier. This character finished second in the Conservative Party leadership race, and when he broke off to get his own party, he couldn't even win his own riding. That's how difficult it is to break into Parliament or even a provincial legislature with a new political party. in Quebec, where I live and Meryam lives, Quebec Solidaire has, in a shorter time frame, achieved electoral success to a limited degree, but it took a lot of effort. It took years for them to get there. I think that we would be better advised to apply all of our energies to moving existing parties of the left and the center left in a progressive direction, rather than try to break away from them and starting from scratch. That's an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. And to me, I think, this leadership race has demonstrated that there's a lot of potential there for us to do just that with respect to the Green Party.
Especially in case with the first past the post electoral system, like we would divide the left even more, and that's not something we want. What needs to be done is grassroots, transpartisan mobilization that should occur, and I think it's something possible to achieve. There are a lot of people that are talking about this. And yes, it's within the parties that we need to create some change, and it's possible to do it in a democratic way, and during policy making, for example. So yeah, it's I gotta admit, it did cross my mind because I was so upset. But I was so upset for 2 days. I couldn't see in front of me. So that's how upset I was. But coming out of this, and when if we're logical and we think in a tactic and strategic way, in a first past the post electoral system, it's not a good time to launch a new party.
Yeah.
There, thank you. A couple people did write and mention the Reform Party as, splitting the right to hopefully unite it later. But I think that all the points that you make are really salient. I think that that's such an ambitious and long-term game, especially when the left traditionally does not have a lot of money as well. We do not have nearly the amount of cash that the Reform Party did. So I wonder then about the Green Party. Some people have been mentioning about sensing division now in the Green Party, given there is quite the split between, especially the last ballot, right, between Dimitri and Annemie Paul. Do you believe that the Green Party can be united, or is that even a goal that we should be working towards? Can we unite the party around socialism? What do you think we should go to next with the Green Party?
Meryam, I'll invite you to go first.
I think it's possible to achieve it. I had my first discussion today with Annemie Paul, and I think it's possible to achieve, as long as the other sides of that do not represent eco-socialists, or that did not bring the eco-socialists into this party, or people that are not eco-socialists. Like Dimitri said, it's possible to achieve, but we need to do it in a democratic way. I mean, if there is 10,000 members, over 10,000 members that voted for us, for our policies, it means that these members need to be considered, and it's possible to unite as long as there's a democratic way, right?
So yeah, I mean, as long as everybody approaches the discussion in a spirit of mutual respect and compromise, absolutely, it's possible to do that. And at the end of the day, we didn't win, so we're in no position to dictate what the political orientation of the party is going to be. But we came damn close. And those are a lot of voices out there who are sympathetic to a much more progressive platform within the Green Party of Canada, whether or not they necessarily identify as eco-socialists. That's quite clear from the result. So anyone who's serious about uniting the party should be interested and genuinely receptive to meaningful compromise. And I am. I don't purport to have the authority or the mandate to dictate anything to the leadership of the party. What I'd like to have is a respectful discussion and find a middle ground. I believe that middle ground exists. I think we can move the party in a progressive direction while recognizing that the eco-socialists did not prevail at the end of the day. And I'm happy to have that discussion. It hasn't happened yet, but I welcome it.
I take it from that, your plans are to stay in the Green Party. I've gotten quite several questions for both of you about what are your plans for the future? Staying in politics, staying engaged in the Green Party. What's next for you?
Yeah, so, you know, the right wing of the party, a lot of them were saying, you know, if Lascaris loses, he's going to bail out. I'm not going anywhere. I got bad news for you. Right wingers in the Green Party, I'm staying. And I'm going to fight within the, you know, the bounds of the Constitution and the bylaws of this party in a respectful manner and in a spirit of compromise to move the party in a progressive direction. I have absolutely no intention of leaving this party. I think we've begun to build a movement within the party, and we're not stopping here.
I feel the same way. Like for now, I just, I feel like I can't stop right now. Like it's just the start, like I said, so a bit earlier, and it's just the start, and we need to keep on going, and that's how I feel too.
That's great. We are going to move to questions from our audience now. Not that this has been a problem thus far, but I'll ask that you continue to keep your answers as brief as possible so that we can try to get to as many questions as we can. So the first question that I will go to was one that I got via email prior to tonight. Someone named Mazdak. He asks, can you make a strong argument for the left to continue pursuing electoralism as a theory of change? You know, after watching leftist leaders continually crushed by powerful liberal institutions, shouldn't we focus our time, labor, and wealth on setting up democratic institutions in our communities outside of electoralism?
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, people tend to have short memories. I mean, there have been huge changes, huge positive progressive changes that have been achieved through electoral politics. But they were nourished by grassroots activism, by organized labor, by peaceful militancy. So for example, the New Deal and the Great Depression, this was a dramatic, profound transformation in the organization of American society and the economy. And ultimately that came through the ballot box. You know, the FDR and the Democrats in the 1930s managed to remake America. It wasn't perfect by any means. There was still lots of injustice there, but they made huge strides. The same thing happened in the 60s, you know, with the civil rights movement. Ultimately, it was through civil rights legislation, a whole raft of reforms within Congress that moved the party, moved the American society towards a much more equitable arrangement, albeit very imperfect. Systemic racism persists to this day, but at least it's not nearly as bad as it was then. You have to combine activism with electoral politics. Ultimately, you have to have the power to legislate to change society. You have to have the power to regulate to change society. You can't do it alone through activism, as important as that is.
Well said. Well said. I completely agree.
All right, I'll flip to another question, which is about the NDP. Quite a few questions have come in on the NDP topic. How should we relate to the NDP? And perhaps more importantly, socialists within the NDP? A couple people have mentioned how perhaps this is myth or history or a little bit of truth left, but there's a belief that the NDP has a larger, more socialist inclined base than the Green Party. Whether or not that's true is obviously up for some debate. But what do we, as a lot of us here, Green Party socialist members, how do we relate to the NDP? Meryam?
Let's do a poll. We're close. I mean, like, there is a base in both parties, and it's just unfortunate that the governance of both parties decided to have a race towards the center right instead of the other way around, you know, instead of having a race towards the left. And that's why I believe it's one of the reasons why we decided to run for this leadership contest, Dimitri. It's to bring the discussion to the left. And it's just the beginning. We need to continue going.
I think there are some great MPs in the NDP. You know, there are people like Nikki Ashton, Leah Gazan, Matthew Green, you know, and the Ontario NDP, Joel Harden. I think the world of Joel. You know, there's too much tribalism in politics, man. You know, we forget that the whole reason why we are in politics, or at least should be in politics, is to make our world a better world. That's why we're here. It's not because a political party is not an end in itself. It's a vehicle towards social change and justice and sustainability. And we should be open to making friends and alliances with people for other political parties who are similarly minded. And that's the kind of conversation I want to have with the NDP and even with liberals. And, you know, within the liberals, I believe there are some people who feel very strongly about the things that we do. They share a lot in common with us in terms of the kind of society that they want to have. So we should be open to developing alliances with them and not look at them as the enemy. And within the Green Party, there are too many people. Many people in the Green Party are very open to cooperation of that nature, but there are some people who, you know, who are a bit too tribalistic, and they harbor ill will because of perceived slights and injustices from, you know, the push and pull of electoral politics. I think we should always keep in mind why we got into politics to begin with, and that's to make our world a better place.
We can add to these MPs and the political parties, the bloc. There are many progressive MPs of the bloc that would be willing to collaborate also. We need to collaborate with everybody that share our values. That's how I see it too.
Do you think the one-time alliance with the NDP, that idea is dead, or does it still have life in it in the Green Party?
I think it's very alive. I mean, you know, again, there's a diversity of opinions about this. There are people who are just, you know, viscerally hostile to the NDP, and they have some legitimate complaints. You know, they feel that there was some, for example, misrepresentations made about the position of our policy on key issues like reproductive rights and so forth. And so they have some lingering resentment about that. But I've seen a tremendous amount of support from the grassroots for electoral cooperation from between the Greens and the NDP. This is a discussion that's worth having, and we should be pursuing that right away because we don't have a lot of time. We have to get as many progressive MPs in Parliament as quickly as possible. So it may be a difficult discussion for us to have because of lingering resentments, but it's one that we should have.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we briefly lost Meryam here, but before she comes back, I'll ask you a question. This is, pardon me, I've lost their name now. Yeah, this is from Matthew. Do you plan on running as to be an MP in the future federal election?
I would be happy to run as an MP. If the party would have me, I'm going to be there. So 100%. And I also have to get the consent of my partner Farida, who has gone through a very difficult 7 months, but I think I can persuade her.
Good, good. Another question I have is specifically about the land back issue. This is from Giselle. How do you reassure people who think land back and socialism means that you will come for their stuff?
Well, look, I think we should listen to Indigenous peoples themselves. The demands of Indigenous peoples, including those who are active within the land back movement, you know, it's not for a wholesale surrender of, you know, control of our land and resources to Indigenous peoples. They're just asking for their fair share, that's all. And they're asking for us to respect their rights under treaties and under, you know, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples to fully ensure that their consent is obtained on an informed basis when we seek to utilize their land and resources, and that they be given a sufficient share in the national wealth in order to develop their communities in a humane and just manner. And so one of the policies that we advocated for in our platform, which is not developed by us, but by Indigenous groups, is that the Indigenous peoples of this country should be entitled to a fixed percentage of Canada's GDP annually. I think this is the minimal fairness, minimal concession that we should make. It's not really a concession, it's their entitlement. They are entitled, Indigenous persons, in light of the historical injustice, in light of the fact that they are Indigenous to this land, to a sufficient degree of the national wealth to ensure their social, economic well-being, their dignity, and their right of self-determination. That's all they're asking for. They're not asking to take over all of Canada. Although frankly, that would not be an unreasonable request. So that's not at all what they're asking for.
Thank you. I'm glad to see Meryam back. I'll go on to the next question, and maybe Meryam wants to start off answering. That how would you recommend activists manage the balance between electoralism and community organizing? Because we only have so much capacity. There's not as many of us as there are conservatives. And this question comes from Jeffrey, if you want to take it.
Maybe I did not understand the question, but is it something similar that was already asked a bit earlier?
Yeah, we touched on the needing a balance to achieve socialist politics. We need both electoralism and community activists. But how? What do you think some strategies would be to help us manage that? Do we devote all of our energies into, let's say, the political party aspect of it, or should we spend a little bit more time right now in this lull, perhaps, building up more community organizing? Forging alliances. Like, I'm just wondering, what kind of strategies do you think we should take?
Forging alliances is something necessary, definitely. I've been repeating it many times. Transpartisan organizations are important, and it's there is a connotation that is political to certain organizations, but like, we need organizations. And we need to be structured in a certain way. So we don't end up just putting too much effort on one side instead of, yeah, that's how I see it. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Sorry, the question is again?
I'll rephrase it again. It's about what kind of strategies do you think left activists should pursue, trying to balance that pull between electoralism and community organizing, and should we focus a little bit more on forging alliances, or should we be launching into the Green Party, whole hog? What do you think our energies are best spent on right now?
Again, I think we have to do both. I've been an active member of Fair Vote Canada. I've been engaging extensively, as has Meryam, with the One-Time Alliance for Democratic Reform. I sat on the board. I was the chairman of the Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East. I was on the board of Toronto 350, the University of Toronto branch of 350.org. I sat on the board of the Unity Project for the Relief of Homelessness in London, Ontario. At the same time, I've been very active politically, and I've tried to build connections between these various wonderful social justice organizations and electoral politics. And I think that we have to build a bridge between electoral politics and civil society, and work together hand in hand to achieve, the society we want to have within the requisite time. Because as I said many times, as has Meryam, we don't have a lot of time left. So we have to ally ourselves with all like-minded persons and groups as quickly as possible to achieve the world that we want.
I have another question here from Andrew Skipsey that I'm just going to also add a little bit onto from some other ideas I've seen. Do we need to start an outside organization to help eco-socialist candidates enter into both the Green Party and the NDP? So this is a question a little bit more like, how do we recruit and encourage more radical people to enter politics, to help transform politicians from being business class and lawyers and working professionals, and getting more working class people, let's say, involved as candidates? What do you think a role, do you see an outside organization like Courage playing that role? Or how do you see recruiting new radical candidates into the political world go?
Well, one thing you can all do right now, let me just give a shout out to Jen Nielsen who sat on the board of the BC Eco-Socialists and who's running in the BC election for office. She deserves your support, whether you're a Courage member or not. And that, you know, and when we see candidates like Jen coming forward and putting themselves out there and explicitly recognizing or acknowledging and advocating for eco-socialism, we have to get behind them, whether, you know, you're just an independent, whether you're part of Courage, whether you're part of another political party. Let's support eco-socialists wherever they are. And I wish Jen the best, and I really encourage you to support her in any way you can. In terms of, you know, I think what Courage is doing is very important. Although I will say that I think there's a bit of a perception, rightly or wrongly, that Courage, at least within the Green Party, there may be a bit of a perception, other parts of the political spectrum, that Courage is a little bit too closely aligned with the NDP. Now, I'm not necessarily adopting that view, but I think it's very important, if an organization is going to play that role, is to maintain a clear line of independence between any particular political party and its overall mission. I know Courage's mission, I have every confidence, is in fact to promote progressive candidates, eco-socialism, you know, a transition away from a capitalist economy. But it's really important to maintain that level of independence while at the same time promoting progressive candidates. So I think organizations like Courage are indispensable, and as long as they're not perceived to be too closely aligned with any particular political party, I think they can do a great deal of good.
Yeah, and it's not a requirement for it to be non-partisan. That's not it at all, because it's about being transpartisan, but truthfully transpartisan. It's something Courage can become much bigger also, and there would be even much more members that would join the coalition. So yes, it is a coalition, and we need like a certain balance for sure, just like Dimitri said.
I've got a question here from Santiago, who asks, outside of electoral politics, how important is labor and labor organizing? And how should we prioritize the fight to democratize the workplace and support the formation of worker co-ops and unions?
I think it's absolutely vital, you know, and I've been saying throughout this campaign, until I'm blue in the face, that we in the Green Party have effectively ceded to the NDP the role of champion of organized labor. And that has cost us, first of all, that's not consistent with our own core values, because we are a party of social justice. You know, any party who's serious about social justice should be allied with organized labor and with workers generally. They deserve our support. It's consistent with the core message and the foundation of our party, but also it's just smart politics, because, you know, millions and millions of Canadians are, you know, unionized, and a great many more are workers who are either unionized or non-unionized. That's a lot of votes, and we should be doing what we can to defend their interests and advancing a platform that speaks to their needs, their hearts and their minds. And we as the Green Party can do a much better job of that. So ultimately, I think it's vital to do that. And our failure to do that not only has cost us a lot of votes, not only has prevented us from achieving our core mission, which is to defend social justice, but it's also made the NDP leadership complacent, because nobody's really challenged them in that role. And so they just take it for granted that organized labor is going to support them. It's time for us to put the pressure on the NDP leadership to actually prove that the NDP is the champion of organized labor. And the way we can do that is by putting forward a boldly pro-worker platform. I think that should be a priority for the Green Party of Canada.
Definitely, and it's about this perception also that we're a one issue party. It's because we were never able to talk to the workers, and we can't be advocating for social justice and not being one of the champions of the workers. I've been talking a lot about jobs guarantee and creating jobs, and we need to make sure that the workers do not are the ones that are left behind in this transition out of to decarbonize our economy. So it's something that we've been talking a lot during the campaign, and it's to remove this idea also that the Green Party of Canada is just a one issue party. So yes, and I agree with Dimitri, we need to challenge the NDP.
I'm still getting tons of questions that's kind of narrowing in on a question of how to unite socialists. And so I know that we've touched on this a few times, but I'm going to pose it to you in yet another way. This is from Adam. He asks, what's the downside of building a mass campaign for socialism that aims to unite socialists and the Greens, NDP, and the left more broadly? And is this not a better project than doubling down and fighting within the Green Party, potentially limiting our scope? Dimitri?
So I'm not sure if I understand the question. The question is whether, I think I need you to repeat that, because I'm not sure I entirely understand.
Sure, I think what he's asking is, he's wondering if doubling down and staying in the Green Party and trying to fight for socialism within the Green Party is somewhat limiting. And should we not be trying to make a broader coalition that transcends the Green Party and gets the NDP socialists on board and gets into the broader left? He's worried, I guess, that partisanship, I think, still plays a big role as a barrier to uniting the left. So I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to that directly.
Well, I guess I'm having difficulty understanding how that's different from the whole idea of starting a new political party. Ultimately, you know, as I said at the outset, and I'll say many times, if we're going to achieve our collective objectives as eco-socialists, we need to acquire political power. We have to operate through some political vehicle in order to get there. It's either going to be through the existing parties, or it's going to be through the formation of a new party, and the institutional obstacles, the barriers to entry for new parties are enormous. They're absolutely enormous. And there already is within the Green Party a very, as we've seen in this leadership contest, there already is a very vocal and substantial eco-socialist base. So why, you know, reinvent the wheel? Why start from scratch? Let's build upon what we already have. And, you know, socialists within the NDP should do likewise. And we should cooperate with each other electorally to achieve the best possible outcome for eco-socialist candidates across the country, whatever their political affiliation may be.
It's by working together that we're going to be stronger. That's my kind of mindset that I get out of this leadership contest. Is like we absolutely need to work through across party partisanry. So it's yeah.
The last question that I'll ask you for tonight is about specific next steps within the Green Party. A couple of people have asked this, is that when is there a next policy convention? What are the next steps that we can take as new members, some of us in the party, to assist our eco-socialist mandate and push that forward?
Well, we just launched literally the 1 or 2 days after the leadership contest was concluded, the next biannual policy process within our own party. And we have until November 3rd to submit policy resolutions. There are 3 types of resolutions that you can submit between now and November 3rd. One relates to substantive policy. The other one relates to constitutional reform. And the third is directives, which are non-binding admonitions from the membership to federal council. We have, you know, you have to, in order for the policy to be submitted to the members for consideration, it has to get through the drafting committee. So you have to look very carefully, and you can do this on the Green Party website at the rules for drafting. I talked a little bit about them earlier. You know, unfortunately, we are currently confined to, you know, articulating general principles, and we can't be too specific. You're limited to 150 words, but you can still accomplish a lot even within those parameters. Once you get through the drafting committee and they're submitted to the party, there's going to be a vote online. I think it begins in early January, goes through to early December through to early January, which will determine the prioritization of these resolutions for purposes of the convention. And it's obviously, as NDPers will know, very important that your resolution be ranked very high if you want to have any chance of it getting passed by the members. So you have to mobilize supporters for your resolution. Once you get it submitted, you have to mobilize them to support that in the online vote so that it gets a high priority. And then if you get through that hurdle, then you obviously want to persuade, a sufficient number of members to support the resolution at convention, which will happen in 2021. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us to build upon the movement that we've already energized within the Green Party of Canada, get engaged in the policy process. Let's work together to put forward a series of eco-socialist policies and participatory democracy, constitutional reforms, and get those policies passed. And from there, the sky's the limit.
We will have some announcements where we'll have some town halls coming up. Just not now, but it's going to come up quite fast for the members. I think they need to stay connected. Like it's just the start, just like Dimitri said. And yeah, if people want to be part of this policy making, I encourage everybody to actually join the Green Party of Canada, because we're here, and it's now or never.
Thank you so much. Do you have any closing words for all the lefties here that are watching you tonight? Meryam.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting. I want to thank you, Emily, and James also for organizing this. I want to also I want to thank Courage for hosting this town hall and this discussion with Dimitri. We're gonna have many of them in the future. And yeah, like I am super proud of what we've accomplished, and just like we said many times during this town hall, it's just the beginning, and the sky is the limit.
Dimitri.
Thank you very much again. I second what Meryam said about the wonderful work Courage is doing. I really appreciate the fact that you as an organization, I'm sure, spent a lot of time debating and thinking about the Green Party leadership race. Your voice was very important in advancing the cause of socialism within the party. Even though you ultimately weren't in a position to issue a formal endorsement, you guys did great work, and you engaged with us. And we had constructive and very enriching conversations with members of Courage. And I want to encourage all the people on this call who are not members of Courage to get involved with Courage, because it's doing a lot of great stuff to advance the cause of socialism and anti-capitalism within Canada. So if we can grow the organization, we will make it much easier for eco-socialist candidates to succeed at the end of the day, whatever party they may be affiliated with. And the last thing I want to say is, again, we need to unite. We must unite. We must work together. There are too many divisions on the left. There's too much infighting. There's too much doctrinal purity. I think we ultimately have to be mindful of the things that unite us. We have a common vision of the world that we want to see. And we know in our heart of hearts that we're right. We have the prescription for saving humanity and creating a socially just society. We are the moderates. Never forget that. Don't let anybody marginalize you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much to Dimitri and Meryam for donating your time and wisdom and kind words. And thank you very much to the whole team at Courage for helping make this happen. In particular, James, Megan, and Fred for helping to organize this event. And a huge thank you to everyone watching tonight. You've joined us and you've contributed such amazing questions before tonight and during, so thank you for that. Again, if you would like to learn more about Courage and how to join our membership, we're also currently working on a Courage to Organize project where we're working with SEIU, the union, to help organize workers in their workplaces. So we're doing lots of really fun, exciting stuff. So please visit couragecoalition.ca or feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at courage_CA. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.